drops significantly in the air, some thousands of feet. Wait for it here. So you could kind of see it dissipate there. We're going to break down what exactly we just saw. This was mere minutes ago, and you can see the balloon kind of drop significantly, dissipate. You see that aircraft flying low underneath it. Let's bring into the conversation national security expert Hal Kempfer, CEO of Global Risk Intelligence and Planning. Hal, thanks so much for being with us. You have been following us and walking us through this story ever since it broke. And just last night, you said this was a distinct possibility, and it has come to fruition. It has happened. I want to put up this tweet from Fox News White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich confirmed what we all saw. U.S. missile shoots Chinese spy balloon, military traffic blocked, balloon coming straight down now. At last updated, had descended more than 20,000 feet. Your first thoughts, Hal?
Well, Andrew, as we talked about it, you know, the balloon went, as we say, feet wet. In other words, it crossed over the coastline. It was just out in the water. Everything I can tell, I'm presuming it was shot within the 13 nautical miles of our territorial waters. So from an international law perspective, that is U.S. territory, U.S. airspace. There really isn't any question on that. The other thing, too, that they were looking at, and this goes back to the history of shooting down balloons, which is not new. It actually goes back a very long way to World War I and before, is a lot of times if you take guns on balloons, you know, whether it's a 50 caliber machine gun on a plane or a 20 millimeter or something like that, you'll end up perforating the balloon, and sometimes those little holes just don't leak as fast as you'd like. So it can actually go a long way. What you saw there, that poof of smoke, what I'm assuming is that they had fired a missile with a proximity fuse that then, when it exploded, sent out shrapnel that literally shredded the balloon. If you saw how fast that balloon collapsed, that indicates to me that the balloon was shredded, essentially, that there was a lot of stuff that took it out. I was kind of wondering if they were going to do that. That would make a lot of sense to me. We certainly have the ability to do that. And using proximity fuses to take out things in the air goes back a very long way. That's kind of one of the basic concepts behind anti-aircraft missiles, anti-aircraft artillery, is you put out a lot of artillery in an area and it hits something. So if you look at that, you see that it just literally shredded, if you will, tore up that thing, which from a recovery standpoint makes it a lot easier. Now it's going down in a fairly straight trajectory. It's not, you know, floating out further out to sea with the winds. It's coming straight down. That allows them to figure out where they want to put their recovery assets, things at the sea, helicopters, stuff like that. Now, what we probably won't see, but what's probably going on right now, is that they've launched a bunch of helicopters. They have swimmers or divers that are literally circling around, waiting for this thing to hit. And in some ways, it would remind you of almost like the Apollo recovery thing, in terms of they're going out there, dropping them in the water. But when it goes in the water, what they're going to want to do right up front is try and hook the balloon to try and keep the balloon with the ISR, with the electronic package, the surveillance package, all of that equipment that they had hanging beneath it. They want to capture that because we want to go back and forensically take it apart, see what they had, and then from that we can see what they probably collected upon, and do a lot of damage assessment on this, but also a lot of intelligence collection on what the Chinese have.
Okay, Hal, my question, though, you see a lot of the debris. There's going to be a lot of debris kind of falling from this as well, because this is massive. You and I were talking last night. It's the size of 3 school buses. But you also, Hal, saw what was kind of flying underneath the balloon, underneath the debris field. Do you have any indication? I haven't seen any reporting just yet of what took this down. What type of, aircraft, what type of missile everyone's talking about, how this was shot down. Do we have any indications? What does your gut tell you, you think?
Well, not so much my gut, but the reporting was there was 2 F-22s that were on strip alert or standby. There was a report that was out that there were some AC-130 or KC-130 aerial refuelers, and that a couple of F-22s, a flight of F-22s, if you will, were standing by to use this. And I'm not sure what missile was used. All I can tell you from the missile is it was one that went up and probably did a proximity fuse detonation of it. So when it got up to the balloon itself, the warhead went off and then sent shrapnel going through the warhead or through the balloon, which then caused that shredding effect. And as you saw the balloon fell, not surprisingly, little pieces of the balloon started falling off. That's indicative of a balloon that's been really torn apart extensively. If it was just a few perforations in there, the balloon would deflate, but it would stay largely intact. In this case, you see where it literally just, falls apart quickly. And you have to look at the rapidity with which it deflated, which basically it just imploded, if you will. That's also an indication of an explosive device. You see that puff of smoke? That's an indication of an explosive device. That may be, by the way, I'm not a chemist, but I think that some of that puff of smoke may actually be the helium that was in the balloon at high altitude. That's kind of what we're seeing there. But you look how that thing is just literally just fell apart. I mean, all of it immediately deflated in a massive, rapid loss of gas. And then you see where the balloon has essentially become sort of a streaming parachute at this point. And with the with the velocity with which it's falling to Earth, that's starting to rip off little pieces of the balloon, and you're starting to see stuff float away. That's to be expected. Now the question is, and I'm sure they're looking at this very closely with every optical device that we have, did the package, the surveillance package, the electronics underneath, did it stay connected to the balloon, or did it disconnect? And there's a lot of thought on that, which is, well, would they have possibly set this up in such a way that if it was taken down, which they assumed, if you're going to send a balloon like this across the U.S., your assumption might be that it would be taken down, could have been set up that if the balloon does get shot down, that the package might automatically detach and fall to Earth. That's something that they're probably looking at very closely. That would give them a lot of, from a potential Chinese recovery standpoint, it would give them more time to do stuff.
Okay.
But also, it would also destroy it more completely than if it was connected to the balloon itself. Yeah. So there's just a lot of what ifs when you look at this.